Namaskar, I'm Dr. Anshu Joshi. I'm Assistant Professor at the Center for Canadian, US and the Latin American Studies, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. I'm also the media in charge of Jawaharlal Nehru University. Today, I'm going to share my views and some basics and tips, some do's and don'ts related to the topic, effective research proposal writing. And for that, I have a presentation for you all through which I would be sharing my thoughts and views with you all. So this is the topic for today, effective proposal writing. And indeed, it is very important for all of us who are engaged in continuous research on a day-to-day basis. For all the research scholars as well as teachers, it's indeed a very important exercise. So what does it take to write, to create an effective research proposal? What are the elements of an effective proposal? How can we ensure that we write apt, we write clear, complete, good quality, different sections of a research proposal? Today, I'm going to share this all with you and some more tips. So we are going to discuss the objective, not only of this session, but also of a research proposal. We would also see that what are the different challenges that come in the way of writing an effective research proposal at different junctures, at different milestones, while preparing the draft of the research proposal. We would see what are the different defects that actually impact the quality of our research proposal and how can we prevent those defects. And in the end of this session, I would be showing some examples and we'll also see some exercises through which we would be able to understand that how can we ensure that our research proposal meets all the quality standards and is of good quality. So we would be discussing different points related to writing error-free proposal documents by understanding different defects that occur in our documents a lot of times. We would understand different defect types, their level of severity, and how can we prevent those defects. Now, if you look at a research proposal, these are the typical sections of a research proposal. So we always provide the basics, the introduction, the history, and most importantly, the gist of entire research proposal in the section called introduction. So introduction is the section that actually provides not only the detailed explanation of the scope of the study, it also explains why part of these studies, and it explains the kind of research questions that the study would include, along with some basic points related to other sections like literature review, the gap in the existing literature on the basis of which, the proposed study would continue, the scope of the study, the hypotheses that would be tested through the proposed study, questions, tentative chapterization, and so on. So it is kind of the executive summary, it is kind of the abstract section of the research proposal. It actually has to set the right tone for your proposed study. And after introduction, we provide another very important section in the research proposal called the literature review. Literature review is an extensive exercise wherein you not only provide a detailed analysis of the literature that you have come across, you have studied in the exercise of preparing the research proposal document, you also provide the gaps existing in the literature that you have reviewed so far. So whatever literature you come across related to the topic of your research, it could be a primary report by a government. It could be a secondary resource of an article or a newspaper piece or a chapter written in a book, and so on. It could be a monograph. So first of all, this exercise is very extensive in terms of finding the right literature for review for your research proposal document. So for example, if my topic of the research is related to bioterrorism in specific and terrorism in general, first and foremost, I need to look at all the current primary and secondary sources related to bioterrorism. Then I have to pick those articles, those chapters, those monographs, those newspaper articles, those reports that provide me the extensive knowledge, not only about the present situation of related to the topic that I have chosen, it also provides the history of the topic that I have chosen. But the literature that I have picked should be updated. It shouldn't be, say, 50 years old article. It can be of use depending on my topic. If I'm working on a particular theory, suppose in the field of international relations, suppose I'm working on realism. And in that case, if, for example, I pick ancient realism or classical realism, and I pick a particular theorist, for example, I pick Thucydides, or if I pick Chanakya, in that case, I can pick that literature also, which speaks about such kind of a topic in volume. However, if I'm working on a topic that actually relates to the present day, or say new in nature, in that case, I need to pick my literature carefully, as in it needs to be relevant, it needs to be up to date, it needs to be specific to my topic. Then I need to do an extensive analysis of the literature that I went through thoroughly. And in the literature review section in my research proposal, I need to present that analysis in a systematic manner. So at the end of the section called literature review, I then need to provide the gap that I found in the existing literature, because that gap would lead me to find out the accurate scope of the study, relevant scope of the study, as well as formulating apt research questions and hypotheses. So if at all I'm thinking about a particular scope of my proposed study that already has been covered and answered in the literature that I have found, then I need to rework and find out the gap in a way wherein my scope could be relevant, could be new, and can contribute to the world of academia in the most meaningful way. So my literature review section actually leads to another section that is about providing the gap in the existing literature. And this gap actually leads the researcher towards finding out the right scope of the study. Now, based on the scope of the study, the most important section of the research proposal is formulated, that is hypotheses. Now, hypotheses, as you all must be knowing, in any stream, in any domain of academia, is a set assumption which is tested throughout the journey of research. And this hypothesis can be testified to formulate a theory. It can be falsified also. It all depends on the research study. So a lot of times, researchers think about and formulate the hypotheses, keeping conclusion already in mind. Please understand that's not the right approach. The researcher must not think about the conclusion of the proposed research in the beginning itself. It has to be the other way around. So based on the gap in the literature and based on the scope of the study, you have to formulate hypotheses in a way wherein it is neutral in nature. It can be testified, it can be falsified, depending on the outcome of your research. And on the basis of the scope of the study and hypotheses, the research proposal then provides a list of the relevant research questions that are intended to be answered through a proper systematic research study. Another important section, which is not listed here, but is the backbone of the research study, is the research methodology. It's a very important section wherein, based on the topic, based on the scope, based on the hypotheses, the researcher provides the roadmap of the research in terms of the method he or she is going to follow. So what kind of variables the researcher is going to pick? Is this study going to be an inductive study or a deductive study? Is this study intended to use only qualitative methods, or some quantitative methods would also be used? What kind of resources would be used for the proposed study? Would there be any field trip on the card? Would there be interviews in the scope of this study? All these kind of questions are set and answered in the section called research methodology. And while developing this section, basically, as I said, the researcher develops the roadmap of the research study. So if the topic and the hypotheses are formulated in such a way or thought through in such a way wherein the researcher knows that it would be about from a specific to general journey of research, then it's going to be an inductive study. If it is the other way around, wherein he or she starts with something general that leads towards something specific at the end of the research study, then it's an inductive study. In social sciences, we typically use the qualitative methods, historical method, analytical method, descriptive method of research. But nowadays, to keep our research study objective and based on empirical data and facts, we also bring in some empirical or quantitative methods into the research study. So that is also clearly mentioned in the research methodology. Then the kind of sources, as in the primary and secondary sources. Primary sources are the first level information, could be the government reports, could be, for example, a memoir or a poem written by a writer, and so on. The secondary resources are the second level information, such as the newspaper articles, journal articles, book chapters, books, and so on. So all these things are clearly mentioned in the research methodology section of the research proposal. And then the researcher provides a section where he or she gives kind of a framework of the proposed study in the form of tentative chapters. So based on the scope, based on the hypotheses, based on the research questions, the chapters are formulated. And at the end of the research proposal, a detailed bibliography is given, containing all the primary and secondary sources that were used for preparing the research proposal. So this is the framework of a research proposal. Now, there are a couple of challenges that typically the researchers come across while writing an effective research proposal. What are those challenges? So first of all, an issue related to non-conformance usually occurs in context of the set standards and guidelines. So for example, UGC has provided a detailed guideline document for writing research proposals to apply for projects in various government bodies. So there are certain standards, there are certain do's and don'ts that the researcher needs to follow. A lot of times when the researcher doesn't know about such standards and guidelines, non-conformance issues occur. So there could be a non-conformance in context of the kind of bibliography provided. It could be related to the research methodology section. It could be related to overall words limit and so on. To avoid that, it's very important to understand the target audiences for the research proposal. So is the research proposal being prepared for an evaluation purpose within the university or within the college? Is it prepared for funding purposes to get a project from some government body? Or what is the purpose of preparing the research proposal? Accordingly, all the sections need to meet certain standards and guidelines depending on the body or the institution for which the proposal is being prepared. So for example, in Jawaharlal Nehru University, in our School of International Studies, when our research scholars prepare their research proposals for their doctoral degrees, they already have a manual of School of International Studies that needs to be followed while writing research proposals in terms of methodology, in terms of words limit, in terms of kind of language to be used, and so on. So they stick to that manual and write their research proposals accordingly. Then comes another challenge related to the consistency of language. So a lot of times, this kind of challenge occurs when the content is copied and pasted in the research proposals. And mind it, it's a serious challenge and a serious question related to plagiarism also. We need to keep that in mind. So, while writing the proposal, the researcher needs to keep certain guidelines in mind, whether to use UK English or US English, what kind of sentence have been written in the research proposal, as in the active voice has been used predominantly or passive voice has been used. Typically, we need to use active voice while writing research proposals. And that needs to be followed consistently across the proposal document. So you need to look into this issue related to consistency of language. A lot of times it is about developing the right apt hypotheses. As I said, that many researchers develop or write hypotheses keeping the probable conclusion in mind, which is not the right approach. Then it is also about the apt scope of the study that comes from the gap found in the literature review. And research questions are also to be formulated in that way. Irrelevant questions, redundant questions need to be avoided, but a lot of times they get a place in the research proposals, deliberately or unknowingly. Then the case of missing references could also occur as a major challenge while writing a research proposal. So a lot of times when we take viewpoints from a particular article or the news piece and so on, this needs to be properly referred through whatever style we choose to follow as per the set standards for the particular kind of research proposal. And the references are not to be missed at any cost, because again, it is related to the challenge of plagiarism. So, aligned to all such kind of challenges, there are some major defects that impact the quality of our research proposals. So what are those major defects? How severely can they impact the quality of the research proposals? And how can we prevent that? So in this section, we can now see different types of defects that impact the quality of our research proposals. So first and foremost, it is related to the accessibility of the proposal document. So a document provides easy accessibility to the readers if they can locate the information quickly and easily. So how this parameter of writing a good proposal document gets impacted? A lot of times we miss certain sections in the proposal document. It could be the executive summary section. It could be the table of contents that get missing in the proposal document. It could be the list of tables. It could be the list of figures. It could be about expanding the abbreviations. So I hope all of you know this basic rule of language, that whenever you use any acronym or abbreviation, you need to expand that acronym or abbreviation in its first instance of occurrence in the document. Afterwards, you have to use only acronym or abbreviation. So for example, if I write JNU for the first time, I have to mention Jawaharlal Nehru University, and then in bracket, I would write the abbreviated term, that is JNU. After that first occurrence, I'll keep using JNU across the document. And you also have to keep in mind that please do not mention different kinds of abbreviations for the same word or same phrase. So that nomenclature has to be used consistently in context of acronyms and abbreviations. Then it could be about missing or improper sections or page numbering. So it's a small thing, but a lot of times people forget to insert page numbering in their proposal document. And that can confuse the readers. Suppose if in case of a printout is taken and is studied by the reader, then the sections could be like jumbled up. In that case also, the accessibility of the proposal document gets impacted. Then there could be missing, incorrect, or unclear cross references. So cross references are nothing but the references of the content that you take and put in your research proposals. And they need to be provided in a complete way as per the set guidelines. There could be missing figure or screen captions and numbers. So if at all any figures or any tables are provided in or mentioned in the research proposal document, proper captions need to be inserted along with those figures and tables. And ideally, the list of tables or list of figures should be generated after table of contents before going on to the sections in the research proposal document. Then the header and footer could be incorrect, could be confusing. A lot of times, some people use some templates and they forget to eliminate the headers or footers of the company or the organization or the institution of which the template is. And that template they use for creating the research proposal for another institution. So that typically impact the quality of the proposal document. And all these factors actually impact, if you look at the severity level, moderately the quality of the proposal document. Then comes a very, very important aspect of the research proposal document. It's about providing accurate information in the entire research proposal document. So a document is accurate if it is factually correct and contains up-to-date, objective, and unbiased information. And accuracy indeed is a very significant aspect parameter for a research proposal. So all the data, all the facts should be accurate in your research proposal document, and they have to be provided along with the references to ensure the credibility of those facts or those data. So a lot of times, what do? We provide outdated screenshots. We provide outdated figures. We provide inaccurate or outdated research data. So for example, if already the census data for the particular topic or relevant to a particular topic is available for the year 2019, just because you don't have an access to it, or just because you didn't try to find out that data, if you have an already downloaded data of say 2017, and if you provide that, that is the outdated data that you are providing in your document. So it impacts the accuracy of the document. That is a different scenario wherein for the particular instance itself, or providing an example of a particular year of that particular time frame, you provide data pertinent to that particular time frame. That's a different case. But in general, if we are providing data, they need to be relevant and up to date. Then a lot of times, if at all any procedure is mentioned in the proposal document, a lot of times those steps are mentioned in an incorrect way. A lot of times the kind of lists that are mentioned in the proposal document are inaccurate in terms of their types. So there are two types of list that we use in any document: bulleted list and numbered list. So if you are mentioning a step-by-step procedure or any chronological list or items, it has to be a numbered list: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If at all you are listing the items that don't have any chronological, significance, or they are not chronological in nature, they are not any step-by-step procedure, it has to be a bulleted list. So according to the type of list, it has to be either bulleted or it has to be numbered. That has to be kept in mind. Then coming to the audience orientation. So a document is audience oriented if it uses language appropriate to the target audiences and provides information tuned to the requirements of the audiences. So depending on my target audiences, as I said, what is the purpose of your research proposal? Is it for doing PhD? Is it for getting some funds for some project? Is it for some kind of research for evaluation purpose? Or what is the purpose? Depending on that, you have to find out the kind of audiences you are going to interact with through your research proposal. Accordingly, you have to ensure that your research proposal is met with this particular standard of documentation, which is audience orientation. So don't use abrupt fonts and colors and styles across the proposal document. So a lot of people, they unnecessarily underline phrases and sections and things. They forget to ensure the same font being used across the proposal document. A lot of times, again, this mistake occurs when people cut and paste content from here to there. Then a lot of times, as I told you a few minutes back also, that abbreviations are not expanded in their first occurrences. Technical jargons are used that are of internal nature, and you don't know whether your target audiences would know them or not. A lot of times lead sentences are missing. What are lead sentences? The introductory sentences to introduce any list or any figure or any table or any data that actually sets the right tone for presenting that particular list or data or table or figure. So that this point needs to be kept in mind. A lot of times captions are missing for figures and tables. And that can be very confusing for the your target audiences. So all these points can be prevented if we know that while writing the proposal itself, I'll take care of, all these points. Then comes another very important aspect, another very important parameter of your research proposal document. It's about the clarity of the document. So a document is clear if it conveys the right information to the audience in a correct and clear way. A lot of times people pick very relevant topic of research, but their research proposals fail to impress the target audiences because their proposals are not clear in nature. So if at all, I have picked something like working on, say, Indo-Brazil relations and the future of Indo-Brazil relations, I have to be clear in which domains, because in itself, it's a very vague topic. So my research proposal should be very clear in terms of providing apt and relevant information and viewpoints related to my topic. So a lot of times in proposal documents, the evaluators find a lot of redundant information, redundant data. So for example, a lot of people go or take a deep dive into the history of the topic itself, and they provide unnecessary historical information and data about the topic, which is not required for the research proposal. So such kind of redundant information should not be provided in the proposal document, because it, first of all, unnecessarily confuses the audiences. It also increases the word limit, and finally proves to be a key challenge or a defect for the entire proposal document. In terms of language, a lot of times the sentences are written in a way wherein they are confusing for the readers. Tense is not kept consistent. Undefined terms are used in the documents. Confusing statements are given in the documents. Such kind of viewpoints are provided which can have many interpretations. Such kind of statements or viewpoints are provided which are not supported by facts and data. So ensuring that the research proposal document stays clear in nature is a very, very important key aspect of an effective proposal document. And that needs to be taken care of. Then it is about completeness of your research proposal. So your research proposal would be considered complete if, first of all, it includes all necessary information, elements that are as in the divided in front matter, main text, and back matter elements. So your table of contents is actually a front meta element of your proposal document. Different sections such as introduction and your literature review and scope of the study, hypotheses, and so on are the main text. Your bibliography, index, if any, you have to provide as per the set guidelines, if any, that would be the back matter of your document. And It would be considered complete if it covers the complete scope without any omissions. So for example, if as per the manual that has been given to you to write a research proposal for your institution, if it says that you have to provide research methodology without fail in the proposal document, and if you omit it from your document, it's not going to be considered as a complete document. So if at all any such kind of a section that is prescribed as per the set guidelines or standard process or by a particular institution goes missing, it will be an incomplete document. So missing content, missing section, missing chapter overviews, also missing lead sentences, unfinished sections, abbreviations without any expansions, missing legal information if required. So all such kind of missing data or information would lead your research proposal to be an incomplete document. And if it will be an incomplete document, indeed, it will not be clear to the audiences. When it will not be clear to the audiences, indeed, it's not going to work in future. So to ensure that your document remains complete in nature, stick to the manual or the guidelines provided to you for writing the research proposal document. Then comes the conformance, which I mentioned at the beginning of the session itself. It's about conforming to all the documentation standards and guidelines and different set procedures mentioned as per the manual or the institution too. Then it is about consistency of the document. So a document would be considered consistent if it maintains consistency in terms of terminology and its presentation and language and style and so on. So the research proposal needs to follow consistency in terms not only the kind of language it is using, but format wise also. So for example, the fonts, for example, header and footer, for example, the illustrations, figures, charts, or any kind of text mentioned in the document. Then coming about the content. So your content needs to provide appropriate data, appropriate facts, appropriate examples as and when needed and required as per the section. Then coming to a very, very important part of the research proposal that impacts the quality of the proposal in a major way. It's about the language and style. So a lot of times, instead of using the third person, writers or scholars use first person. So usage of I or we. So for example, if at all somebody's research proposal is on Indian foreign policy, being an Indian scholar, he or she takes the liberty of using the term we, and that actually is confusing for the audiences. And it's not apt, it's not appropriate. It has to be India, Indian, and in third format, you have to mention the name of the country and not we. A lot of times confusing words are used in the documents that impacts the readability. So language and style has to be used in a very, very careful manner. Then it is about organizing the document. So a document will be considered well organized if it follows a logical structure and its overall content or chapters or chapter content are appropriately grouped to maintain continuity of thoughts. So a lot of times inappropriate or redundant examples are given. A lot of time inappropriate flow of information also impacts the proposal document. A lot of times the section title says something else, but the content provided under that section does not match with the title. So that also impacts the organization of the document. A lot of times unrelated information is provided, which is not right. A lot of times cluttered content, especially for literature review, it happens, is provided in the proposal document that confuses the readers. So that has to be taken care of. Then it's about the presentation of your document. So it has to be packed in a professional manner. It should have a visual appeal. It should provide easy readability to your target audiences. So suppose you have used figures or screenshots, but if they are not visible, then instead of creating a good impression, they will actually decrease the quality of the proposal document. The same thing applies to the page size, headers and footers, fonts and colors of the document. It all matters a lot apart from the content part. So this also needs to be taken care of. Redundancy, as I said, needs to be avoided at any cost. Repeated information, outdated information, inappropriate information, inaccurate information, they all need to be checked before finalizing the final draft of the proposal document and should be eliminated. So these are some do's and don'ts that we can follow while preparing our proposal document. So do not use unnecessary words that clutter up your sentences. So many people think that, I'll sound intellectual if I use complex words. Believe me, it will instantly decrease the readability of your document and it would not be appreciated. So use simple sentences, crisp sentences, and meaningful sentences. Do not use first person, avoid passive voice, inappropriate tense, and negative sentences in the document. Do not use abbreviations without expanding them in their first occurrence. Do not miss adding lead sentences for all lists, tables, and figures. Do not forget using parallel construction in list. Parallel construction is kind of a language rule that suppose you are starting your first point of your particular list with a noun, then it has to be noun for all other items in the list. If you are making a sentence in a way wherein it is starting with a verb, then it has to be like coherent for all the other items. So your list should be parallel. It should be coherent in nature. Then please do not follow the incorrect usage of page numbering or numbers. Don't use random capitalization. Sometimes just to show the significance of a particular word or a phrase, our scholars use unnecessary capitalization in a research proposal, which doesn't work well. Do not use double quotes. Double quotes are used only for dialogues or somebody's quote. So if you are quoting somebody's work, part of an article or so on, indent it and double quote it. But if you are just simply, trying to put focus on a word or a phrase, just single quote it. Do not use wrong types of list. Do not use passive voice and inconsistent tenses. Do not mention any cultural or gender biases in your proposal. That would be least expected thing from a research scholar. Do not forget performing spelling check on your final proposal document. Do not use incorrect facts and data. Do not use slangs, colloquium, and foreign words in the document. Do not use periods or full stops for the incomplete sentences. A lot of people, just for the sake of putting full stop, put full stop in their lists for all items. So that's a wrong thing. You should avoid it. So now we have reached to the part wherein we'll be seeing some, interesting exercises. So man hours, man-made, they are all gender biased terms. You should be using person hours, artificial or person-made. He, never use only he. It has to be he or she. He/she. You should, you must, it is suggested, it is needed. Recently, currently, now, instead of that, try to mention the specific timeline. Handicapped or mentally retarded, they are negative terms. Please use differently able, physically challenged, mentally challenged, such kind of terms. We are not able to, we'll not be doing it, or we cannot do it. So some people have this tendency of writing such kind of complex sentences. Just look at it. Please check the source of the information that has been provided here in the document as a part of the answer to this question in the appendix. You all will get puzzled by reading it. Even if you'll read it 3 times, you won't be able to understand what is it all about. Refer to so and so item in the appendix section. As simple as that. They met the director Steven Spielberg. It's about the capitalization. So the capitalizing director is not the right thing. Steven Spielberg, because it's a proper noun, it will be capitalized. Chairman of the board, George Peterson, will address the conference. So proper usage of comma to split the sentence and proper capitalization. The chairperson, if you are using the chairperson, first of all, it will not be chairman, it will become chairperson to ensure that gender neutrality is there. And then we have used some comma to make the right sentence. The City of London, C in small. The London City is correct. The scope of services are broken down into following. So broken down is a slang actually. So see, instead of etc, it has to be etc. Now this part is all related to redundancy. Added bonus. Bonus is always added. So bonus only. Free gift, gift. A gift is always free. Meet together, simply meet, or close proximity, both means the same. So use one of the terms. You only write it. You don't write it down. Repeating is about coming up again. So again is redundant over here. Wires of thin size, thin wires. Revert back. Revert is always about coming back. Plan is always thinking about ahead. 9 a.m. AM already means in the morning. Final outcome, outcome is always final. So write hyphenization. As you can see, state of the art technique, state of the art will become one word by hyphenization technique. So I would appreciate feedback from all of you. I tried to focus on these small things that are typically, generally ignored, but by the end of the day, they impact the quality of our research proposals at a major level. And through the simple exercises and examples and dividing all these defects or challenges in different categories, I try to ensure that next time when you write any research proposal or when you check research proposals of your students, you would be able to pay more attention and ensure that the research proposals are crisp, complete, appropriate, readable, better oriented for the targeted readers, and the ones that would finally be adding to the world of academia in a positive way. So on that note, I'm concluding the session. Thank you so much.